Hi friends, it's Sarah from Ruffles and Rain Boots. Today I'm going to be highlighting the M1 Ultra and two accessories. So if you're new here, this machine, the M1 Ultra, is not just a laser, nor is it just a cutting machine. This combines everything into one, including adding additional features like foil embossing or debossing, like pen writing, and printing. So this machine does a lot in addition to just cutting and laser work. It also has a foil application. That application is currently pressure sensitive. This application is a foil pen using heat. They may look the same, but one is more permanent than the other. The other accessory is the electrostatic mat. If you are familiar with die cutting machines or with the M1 or M1 Ultra, you'll know that when you piece paper, there are little tiny cutouts everywhere. You have to clean the mats, they are sticky, they lose their stickiness, you have to remake them sticky, or it's a consumable for some people in which you're just having to replace it. The electrostatic mat removes that for paper. I can use it with vinyl, heat transfer vinyl, permanent vinyl. I am going to unbox these with you. So we're going to learn about these two items together. If you're new to the channel, you can check out the playlist for this machine and for the software just to see if this machine may be right for you.
Okay, so installation for this is, I don't even think you can call it installation. We have the protection sheets. You have 3 of these in case you destroy one. We have the mat itself, and I ran and got my printer thing because I love that they already thought of that as well. You can print directly on the electrostatic mat. So the setup is you just pop this one little portion of the cord out. You're going to have to put in your laser bed and get these 2 screws, and then you just pop your electrostatic mat lined up exactly where the little divots are there and put those 2 screws back in. If you're like me and you use the honeycomb a lot, you do have to put the laser bed back in. This will not replace it. And then once you get those screws in, you just plug the electrostatic mat into the front of the machine and turn it on. You may have to update depending, and you'll have to do a little plug-in, but it'll calibrate. You have your little test that you need to run, which is simply a white piece of paper, and then you're done. It's super simple, and you get this little party message. And now we're ready to really go. So I do want to say I'm going to use an SVG for this. Is from Creative Fabrica. It's an Easter card, but look up in the top right, you can see the electrostatic mat is an accessory. Now looking over here, it is not under the processing mode because it isn't one. It will appear when you're using other processing modes. So let's choose blade, and you'll see a menu pops up right next to it. Are you using the mat or are you not using the mat? That's it. Isn't that nice? Okay, so I'm going to blow through this project, and the reason is it's exactly like every other project. I like the mat because it's super simple. When you have a multi-step project, I urge you to get in the habit of immediately opening when a processing job is done and then putting the mat back on, like engaging it, because it disengages after every time. So this is exactly how fast I ran it and the level of noise. And you can see when I take it off, I said a interesting word, so I edited that out, but I was very impressed with the details. If you get little marks like this on your mat, don't worry, it's still usable. I even got sticker stuff on my mat, and I'm still using it, and it's working just fine. So I went through and I tested writing, blade cutting. We'll get to foiling in just a second, but you can print on this. It's very robust, and it actually held quite a lot of materials that I kind of thought it wouldn't. So here you can see I just made a little Easter card, and then I started testing a whole bunch of other stuff. So the first thing I wanted to test was a really, really thick piece of watercolor paper. I use these for earring cards and etc. But look on all this stuff over here. For paper, I did a bag. It did work. I did different weights of paper. I did adhesive vinyl and heat transfer vinyl. Both didn't move. I did acrylic. Now I will say the bigger the piece of acrylic, the better it's going to stay. I ended up taping down really tiny pre-made blanks that I use for clear acrylics. So I'm going to continue showing you about the mat, but I want to set up the hot foil tool because you can use them together or separately. Now this setup, I always get questions on, am I going to be able to set it up? Everything you need is in this little box. You're going to open up your machine. It's off. and you're going to put on a bracket. You don't even have to unscrew anything. You're just going to have a pressure sensitive or pressure held bracket. They give you the 2 little screws. Then you're going to remove the basic cartridge front panel, pop in the hot foil pen with the button forward, and then follow the cord management instructions. That's it. That's the entire setup. You do not need the multi-processing head cartridge. You can see my laser cartridge is actually blank over there. It's just the basic. So this is just a little bit of, it was maybe 4 minutes it took me to put this in place. You are not going to have a lot to do. The book, and there's a video tutorial, even walks you through how to do your cord management through here. Not once did it get tangled, never got in the way of anything. And that includes when I was using the sticky mat to hold stuff down or the laser bed itself. So I just plugged the hot foil pen right into the electrostatic mat. You can also plug it into the front of the machine. But when you get that, there's 3 tips here. I thought that was really great. I used all 3 tips. I will say the bold tip is probably my favorite, even on smaller designs, which I'll get to in a bit. So I'm going to put the black cardstock and I'm going to turn on the pen. Then I'm going to engage the mat. And again, holds it down. Like that girl isn't going anywhere. So in here, I'm going to blow through these 2. I just did a couple of things, but I do want to say in the hot foil pen up here, when you go from blade cut or you go from anything, I want you to watch what happens when you choose hot foil. So you can see there's a whole bunch of choices, but choose hot foil. You get none or electrostatic mat. Now, when you have it on none, you also get a distance or a thickness. Now, I'm going to choose the electrostatic mat for these projects, but I'm going to tell you the big fail that happened when I did the measurements. Okay, so I'm just going to choose a single line or monoline font. I'm going to choose colored craft paper or colored cardstock, and I'm going to make sure it's on regular line transfer, and then the settings are going to be default. But that's not all I'm going to test. I'm going to test a basic shape and everything like that. So making sure you're on the electrostatic mat and that it is on, engaged. I'm going to go ahead and do everything I did. Mark it, all of that, because we don't need to measure, only mark. So here you can see I'm just putting some shapes in. I'm also going to put in an SVG because I saw this little setting that was new to me down in the bottom right. You see that stroke? It says it's going to be putting an outline on everything. I don't agree with the word outline there, but you're going to see. So because my mat is engaged, you can see it sucking down the hot foil or the foil sheet, but I'm going to sticker it down everywhere anyway. That is the biggest learning curve of this, is making sure you don't have any real big bumps or openings in your foil. So here it is doing the single line font, which is beautiful. I never messed up a single one. So good job to xTool. Thanks. Here it is doing the shape and the SVG with that outline or that stroke. Now I'm going to show you them up close and personal because I don't like it, but that doesn't mean there isn't a use case for it. So you don't have to turn off the pen. I did like 15 projects in a row. You can just leave it on, but you do have to re-engage the mat. So here you can see the text was beautiful. You see that outline? I don't like that. So I ended up turning it off on most of these projects. All right, so I did a couple of other just cardstock projects because why not? And right here is where I learned I should re-engage the mat immediately upon opening before I set anything else. So I'm going to take out the pen and pop in the blade. There's a nice little holder in case it's hot still. So I just turned it off and set it on the side of the laser. And if that's not right, well, keep your opinion to yourself because it totally worked and never got in the way of anything. But I just popped in the blade tool and then it cut out the card. So again, if you want to make a lot of paper things, but it's a multi-step, get in the habit of re-engaging the mat. So I wanted to try these. By the way, these are amazing to sell. They are just inexpensive craft paper journals and you can sell them for summer trips. Oh, so good. Anyway, so I wanted to see if it would hold this during a simple process and a very kind of longer extended process. Extended process. So I'm going to remove the regular tip and I'm going to pop in the bold tip. I think my only application for that thin tip was actually fonts, single line fonts. Everything else I used the regular or the bold tip, and it was super easy to swap them out and install. Just remember to turn that thing back on because I did forget. and you have to wait for a minute. So I use the bold tip for something very detailed. That's the back center of the journal. And then something really big, right? You can see I'm going to make the bold. I'm going to do my settings. I'm turning that stroke off and choosing fill transfer. And you can see, now here's where I learned about the foil. So where the T and the H are, I had a little bump there. That's what happens. So then I got a lot better. I was able to do different styles of ribbon. These are pre-made acrylic blanks with a third-party heat-sensitive, heat-sensitive foil. These are scrap pieces. You can see they're all banged up and everything. That is with the outline. Now here is the most amazing. This is suede. I cut this with the blade, but that is insane. Here it is on leather, and you can see right to the right is my original testing for the pressure sensitive foil. This is night and day. So if you want to do foiling, I do recommend this tool 100%. I also tested a few projects with it on wood. You can see some earrings here on walnut. It looks amazing in person. Now here is my big failure. When we choose what we're using and the distance up here, remember when we were talking about there's no distance when you're on the electrostatic mat? Well, when you have a sticky mat or the laser base, you do have your distance. If it's above 3 millimeters, which this memo pad is pre-made earlier. So if it's under 3 millimeters, you're fine. You don't have to do a distance. But watch what happens when I choose over 3 millimeters. I have two ways to measure, auto and Z-axis. I used auto on this memo pad and will never do it again, to be honest. This Z-axis is how I measure now. And again, learning curve for me. I didn't watch a tutorial or anything on this. So you just basically manually move the distance of the laser module or the blade module or whatever by these arrows, and you can increase or decrease the distance, and you can even reset it by putting that center one there. And if you're at the highest, it'll already even tell you. So I would say if you are working on bigger projects or pre-made projects like I made this memo pad, you're going to want to use the Z-axis. And that's how I figured out how to do the thicker stuff like this. It definitely worked very well. Again, I already tested as well. You have to make sure it says heat sensitive foil and not pressure sensitive foil. But man, I really had a good time working with these items. I was very impressed with the outcome of both of the items. If I had to choose one, if you're a paper or vinyl crafter, get that electrostatic mat. If you are a crafter and you just want to make fly things, I would say add on the hot foil pen. You can't use it by hand. So like me, I'm a hand letterer. You cannot use this as a handheld hot foil pen, but I am very impressed with the performance of it. Again, not having watched a single tutorial, guessing at my settings, I was really, really impressed. So if you have any questions about this, I'll put some links below to the actual products. As always, I sincerely appreciate you being here. Please like this video and consider subscribing for more laser crafting fun and reviews.